Some kids get an Xbox, some get a PlayStation or a Nintendo, but my brothers are getting something greater. They're getting a PC designed just for them. We need a solid base. We're using a Core i5-4570S, a 12-year-old quad-core that can boost all of its cores to 3.2 GHz. Not impressive by any means today, but it's enough for some kids. What's this? A generic motherboard with some kind of warship graphic. For $42, I got this Chinese board, an I/O shield and a SATA cable is all we're going to need, and a driver disk, but for some reason I don't trust it. I just needed an LGA 1150 socket. We don't need many features, nor do we have any. Thankfully, there is a PCIe slot, and interestingly, an 2280 M.2 slot, which don't normally exist on this chipset. I would have liked more than one fan header though. We're going to have to fix that. I/O is fine, just enough USB and a speaker port is all we're going to need here. Just gotta lift the socket, remove the thing, and drop in these 4 mediocre processing cores. We're keeping cooling basic, but don't expect a copper slug. Those are mine to keep. As always, I'm using MX6. I would appreciate it if you sent me more Arctic. Click, click, snap, break, make sure all the bits are poking through. But again, since we only have one fan header, and I want the bare minimum of one case fan, I'm going to be using a splitter. I know, selfish of me to want 2 fans. RAM time, here comes the RAM. I had these 2 mismatched 4 gig sticks, but turns out one of them was dead, so instead a single 8 gig, 1600 stick, single channel 8 gigs will be enough for them for now. Spread the bits, insert your sticks, and make sure you hear all the clicks. Here's a super small and cheap case I found on Amazon. On Newegg there's a green one too, but I got all my stuff off Scamazon Crime. It's a tight fit, but everything should. With a big asterisk. Gracefully insert your I/O shield. Intermission for power supply, flat cables, 500 watts and 80 plus. I always find unboxing a power supply fun. I don't care how cheap or boring they are. Anyways, it's probably a good idea to start with the cable managing first. I love playing with computer guts. Let's pull out the entrails. I gotta install that fan with my trusty screwdriver, craftsman.com. Oh yeah, storage. How about an SSD with a spontaneous controller? 256 gigabytes is plenty and will be easily replaceable if this kicks the bucket. There's some extra height behind the motherboard, so I decided to route the fan cable below to minimize the chance of those loose cables ending up against the fan blades. This shouldn't be dangerous or stupid. Oh yay, it's cable time. These are a pain in a big case. I'm genuinely routing everything with care. I don't want to risk anything getting caught on a fan at some point. The power supply wasn't too bad. After routing the few I needed, most of them could just get tied up at the top in the end. I'm actually really happy with how this turned out. So now that the triplet's tiny PC is all tidy, just missing one thing. You may notice the lack of GPU. That's its own saga. But first, let's edit the PC for them. They'll be using Windows 10. I'm not converting them to Linux yet. I don't have internet, blah blah blah. Importantly, they won't be the admin account. Say no to all the Microsoft crap. And oh, suddenly I have internet. Funny how that works. Activate Windows the based way, and remind Microsoft to back off. OS U10 is something I always use, but Atlas OS could also have worked here. They won't be connected to the internet, so viruses won't be an issue. Time to update, customize a bit, and get rid of all the pre-installed junk. And to move over all the games, because I prepared. Won't tell you where I got them. Now it's emulator time. I got all the classics and decided to also change the emulator names and icons. This may not be totally necessary, but they understand what a GameCube is, but not a Dolphin. Some of you may think it's controversial, but I don't. An RX 474 gig is more than plenty for some kids. Too much, some may say. But more importantly, there's a ton of RX 470 and 480 4 gig cards that need some love. The 8 gig variants of these cards will be more sought after. So where's the love for the 4 gig frame buffers? There has to be a use case, and I found it. Unfortunately, this card is too long for the case, but that's something I knew beforehand. We'll tackle that later, but I need to do something to this little ragamuffin first. As you also probably know, the RX 470 and 480 can be flashed into 570 and 580 respectively. This is a way to factory overclock your cards in a sense. But you need to also be able to test your card beforehand to see that they can actually reach these speeds as the 400 series card. You can find these VBIOSes on Tech Power Up, but first use GPU-Z to save your current VBIOS. Then find a 570, preferably from the same brand, a VRAM vendor and speeds you know you can hit stably. Then use ATI Flasher, With the newer AMD VB flasher tools I tend to have trouble with, you can flash your new BIOS. Now I must give a disclaimer. You can potentially brick your card, and it's best to do this with your flashing card as a secondary in case you black screen after a failed BIOS flash. But I was libbing dangerously since I've done this a few times before. And after it's complete, I run game again, and now these higher speeds at stock, but drawing 40 watts more. What's the point of all this? There's an extra benefit to the RX 500 series cards over the 400. The 470 and 480 draw more power at idle than the 570 and 580. Well, let's try something different. Drop in clocks all the way. Well that's expected, but sub 40 watts. After a bit more tuning and some crashing, I did end up with settling around 1100 megahertz at 850 millivolts, but that wasn't the end of it. Okay, so the interesting thing is I can't get below 900 millivolts. So perhaps flashing it to a 570 was in vain. And what happens if I drop the power tuning again? Minus 40%, so I guess 60% power. Here's the 75 watts, that was my target. And we're getting about the same speed as my undervolt profile. So this would probably even be way more stable than my undervolt, because it's allowing it to fluctuate. Except the frame times are not consistent. It's just a little movie aroundy. That could be because it's fluctuating so much, so I wonder if okay, so now I made the max, 1050 megahertz, and now it's actually trying to hit that. That cleaned up the frame times. Wow, I think I figured out a new strat for undervolting, which is you just drop the power limit and see what it gives you, and then just try to lock that in. That's the play. Now that's over, let's fit in the case. Some dremeling, sanding, finagling, and installing the correct RAM. I got them 4 controllers, an actual controversial choice. These Logitech controllers aren't good, but I already had 2, so I just got 2 more. I painted 1, 2, 3, and 4 on them, and then set them up on the emulators, and downloaded game cover art. I also wanted all the games to show on the start menu, just in case. I also ran a couple final benchmarks. Trine 4 is the most demanding game, but can still run smooth. You can also set up time restrictions that'll kick off your kids at certain times. I'm glad my parents didn't know this, but I'm making sure my brothers couldn't stay up all night, and that was a big selling point when I pitched this idea to my mother. Now that it's set up for 3 little monsters, all that's left to do is deliver it to them.
Why is it bad?
Knock knock.
He's for sale.
So these are the controllers.
Hey, why do they look cool? They look like they little Xbox.
Here's the screen.
How you do? Oh, you can play Legends Mansion 1? You can?
Yes.
Yeah!
Hopefully you can see it from the top bunk, at least 2 of you right here. And
You can play like this.
while you guys do have controllers for playing your games, it's a computer, so you're gonna need a mouse and keyboard.
And guys, you can type in stuff.
Yeah,
you can search a geometry dash and stuff.
Okay, here's the big problem with this computer. You guys will not be able to use the internet. At least not until you're older, because you're too young.
But how do you take the internet off?
I turned it off. I'm a computer guy. I made sure you guys cannot use it.
It's ours now?
Yes.
Do you know
Yes.
what?
Since you're a little artist, there's a little art program, and you can make digital art. You can draw on
I
it.
was bigger than you. Look.
You're tiny.
You can't
Yeah,
lift
you're
me
still
up
little.
anymore.
What is it?
Many digital speaker.
They're speakers, yep. And look at the picture.
Those stupid. Nice rainbow.
Charles, you see now a little birdie? You're like 30 years old, aren't you?
Okay. Hey, let everyone see my face. Nanya. Hi.
After a little show and tell, I introduced them to some of my favorite classics like Super Smash Bros. Melee, Crash Bash, and they wanted to play Mario Kart 64. Needless to say, they had a good time, and I came back a week later to see how they were doing, and they already played through Sonic Forces. My mom even texted me to tell me that one of them said thanks. I'm glad they can play over 100 games on this little system. Enjoy some of the games I played when I was their age. And hopefully this triplet computer will help them work together, problem solve, and learn how to use a computer. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.